ربنا أعلاك قدرا يا إمام الأنبياء أنت في الوجدان حي أنت للعينين ضي أنت عند الحوض ري أنت هاد وصف.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to your charity. My name is Faraz, but I would like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here and, of course, being with us throughout this Ramadan. Now, one organization that is doing fantastic work and continues to do good work is none other than Penny Appeal South Africa. And I have two distinguished guests from the organization to talk to us about, of course, what they're doing during this Ramadan and looking beyond this month. Let me welcome very familiar faces. Of course, they need no introduction, but we'll introduce them nonetheless. Shanaz Parak and Nazir Jamal. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Always a pleasure having you both here to join us. Shanaz, let's start off, of course, with this Ramadan. How's it been so far for Penny Appeal?
Alhamdulillah, it's been a flurry of activity. Our teams are on the ground throughout Southern Africa. We've been really busy coordinating relief projects, coordinating food pack distribution, zakat, and now, of course, in these last few blessed days, we're coordinating fitra distributions that will happen. So a lot going on here at home, as well as abroad, in terms of responses in Gaza, work with Syrian refugees in camps, as well as Somalia this year.
And we are going to touch on, of course, the international part of this in the next segment. Nazir, obviously we see what's happening globally, and of course, our hearts and our minds are with regards to what's happening in Gaza and the famine that is happening here, the genocide that is happening there. And you guys are going to touch on, the challenges with regards to aid trucks and, how, food and medical distributions have been going. But let's touch on, of course, the domestic problems we have in South Africa, because we're still in a very unequal society. We still see poverty rising. We still see many people not having access what is enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Talk to us about it. Talk to us about how Penny Appeal originally got involved to help many of our fellow South Africans.
That was the initial concept when we started Penny Appeal South Africa. It was the fact that we have a growing, increasing, desperate community that now, regards unemployment, impoverishedness, orphans, and we thought, how can we be focusing too much outside when we've got our issues here? So it was this balance that we struck, as Shanaz had termed the hybrid office,
yes.
Alhamdulillah. And so we stuck to that, and it's been the past 5 years, and that has seemed to grow quite strong. And we've now established ourselves in communities across South Africa, in various provinces. And that work in Ramadan has been continuing.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, I've been able to join the teams on these distributions, and the stories that we hear from the people. Yesterday we were here in Johannesburg, and there was this elderly lady who came to us and said, look, I had no food today.
Yes.
I had nothing. And she was crying and saying, I couldn't believe that I was chosen to receive this. And we told her, this is Allah's work. We're just the medium that it gets to. And so when you hear these stories and you see this impact that you're making in people's lives, we can only thank the donors for this and say your trust in us as a charity, with your zakah, with your lillah, we're able to, as soon as we receive it, as quick as we can, get it to the people that's most needed, especially here in South Africa. And we see that value it creates in long-term projects that we do. So now we start meeting with the communities, we hear their stories, we can then see what else can we assist with. One of the stories we heard of someone saying that they require some university fees to be paid for their students. So we can now consider that and see how we can help the child come out of that cycle. Because that's what we inshallah want. That's what zakah is supposed to be. It's supposed to be that tool to bring people out of this cycle.
I'm going to come to you now, Shanaz, just to talk about some of the projects that have been done. But Nazir, I know that both you, Shanaz, and the rest of Penny Appeal were very active during, of course, the unrest that happened in July 2021. And of course, 2 years ago when those devastating floods happened in KwaZulu-Natal, something that hit you guys very close to home. What did that speak of South African NGOs and Penny Appeal itself about the work that was done to really assist communities in KZN that, still haven't been assisted, post-apartheid, and that the NGOs could play such a huge role there?
Yeah, this is the importance of having a footprint in a community.
Yes.
So having that, you were able to immediately disperse aid into that area because you've already got the logistics sorted out. You've got access to those communities. The community leaders have accepted you. So especially in an emergency that, as you said, happened, we were able to immediately start with our bread distributions and water and whatever the necessities at that time was required. Just even though it was quite difficult and dangerous, I remember the times we were talking to the teams constantly. Are you guys okay? Where you are? Send us your location, tracking, and so on. So important that way. And really, we saw communities come together.
Yes.
And it was despite all our differences and our issues that we have, we thought this is a crisis that we all need to work together. And it was good. We saw many others joining us on this. Our volunteers then said we have to come and join you. And so having this community and picking up the morale and ensuring that aid was received in those communities really showed the impact that we can have as a community.
Shanaz, let's look ahead, obviously, this Ramadan. What are some of the projects that Penny Appeal have been involved in domestically? I know, obviously, seeing the social media of Penny Appeal, those Ramadan hampers. Let's talk about that and, of course, the impact that it's made across these various communities.
I think when we plan out our Ramadan campaign, we have to primarily look at what are the needs on the ground, what are the needs of the people. And now more than ever, we're seeing a lot of families, a lot of entities and businesses who are cutting back. And similarly, that has a knock-on effect where we don't have people who are earning enough to meet the daily nutritional needs. There may be a little that they have. Some people may not have anything at all in terms of sustaining themselves. So food and nutrition is definitely something we prioritized. That was in the form of Ramadan food packs. We also did iftar meals. Alhamdulillah, this year we were lucky enough to have a street iftar, which took place in Delft, in Cape Town. And the first thing people said to us was, that's such a dangerous area. Why are you there?
Yes.
And all we could see was a community. I think when we went outside and we served and the meal started coming out, we realized the depth and the enormity of the poverty in that area. Because what's happened is we know for a fact our economy hasn't been the best recently. With that comes unemployment. People can't buy food. The majority of our population are daily wage earners. A lot of them rely on the daily wage, a weekly wage, maybe monthly. Without that coming through, it's just immediately your kitchen is affected. So hot meals definitely a huge difference to a lot of people, to a lot of children also that we serve in communities. Over and above that, we also did food vouchers in certain communities. This enabled those who benefited from it to go to a supermarket to select what they needed that was relevant to their needs, and then also topping that up with nutritional items, chicken, vegetables, etc. So a lot of food packs distributed. Over and above that, there were a few zakat cases that we have that require assistance. So we do ensure that they get the necessary help that they need, not only in Ramadan. Remember, these activities are outside of Ramadan. And I think our most favorite one is the orphan iftar that we had, and that services children who are on our ongoing orphan program. So they benefited from, being at an iftar event, understanding what it was, lots of activities, lots of volunteers engaging with them. Because I think more than the food pack and more than the hot meal that we're giving, it's a lot more about the spirit of Ramadan. And I think this is where we fall short, that sometimes we become so focused on it being something that's ongoing and something that's linked to an actual item, a tangible item that you give. We forget about sharing and inculcating that spirit of giving and Ramadan and people learning. So a really, really great event that happened. And of course, my favorite one that's currently underway, which is the Eid Dream Project. And that's going to be able to provide children with Eid gifts and Eid clothing. So new clothing, new gifts for Eid. So definitely my favorite one.
And Shanaz, you hit the nail on the head with regards to, clothing, because it's not just about food. It's about the psychosocial needs. It's about making somebody feel human, and that's important, isn't it?
100%. Like Nazir touched on, when we visit these communities, there's a reason that we are on the ground physically, and there's a reason our teams are so involved in communities all throughout the year. It's because you begin to actually see and understand the viewpoint of those that you're serving. And then only do you actually realize the impact of what is happening. And for us, well, for me especially, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed enough being that hybrid model. People who donate, especially via our website, a lot of them leave little notes, which are their niyas. And sometimes I read these niyas and I'm so touched by what I see, their intentions, to be able to serve humanity for Isal Sawab of my deceased so-and-so, for my shifa, all of that. And I think, that drives us to make sure that the match happens, that as much as this person has intended for it, that the person on the other hand receives it. And I promise you, there's nothing more beautiful when you see the true impact of what it's done for people, and you know that, alhamdulillah, it's only through Allah's mercy and grace that you're allowed to bridge that gap together. So a lot of that happening this Ramadan, a lot of Ramadan spirit, and we're thankful for it.
I've got 1 minute, Nazir. I want to fit in this question. Shanaz touched on it, moving it just not beyond Ramadan. Of course, we have the seasonal ability to go ahead and donate. But, overall, how does Penny Appeal work in trying to make sure that this is a 12-month basis of serving so many people who have been underprivileged for so many years?
So this is the difference between like a knock and drop charity or one that is really establishing itself in the community. So we have a team called our programs office, and their entirely job is to ensure that we are communicating with the communities, in talking to them constantly, seeing what is the need, conducting analysis, assessments, sending it then to Shanaz, reviewing, coming back. So engaging constantly with the community, so we know that this month, this is what they really require. Next month, this is what they require. And then obviously trying to expand those projects in different areas. So constantly visiting new villages, new areas, new rural areas, new schools. And then you're looking at our orphans project, for example. That's one that's sponsoring the entire year. So when you sponsor that orphan, that entire year, their food, their nutritional needs, their educational needs, clothing needs are all covered. And so you know that this is a child that's living in a home that is now got a guardian who's taking care of them, and they don't need to stress about how do they feed this child, how do they take care of this child. So having this kind of concept and kind of view in your mind, that you have to look at how we're going to ensure that throughout the year that these communities are not just provided food, but also provide all the resources as a holistic view.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Shanaz and Nazir. We're going to be talking about Penny Appeal's work from a global perspective. Do stay tuned to Know Your Charity.
أنت عند الحوض ري أنت هاد وصفي أنت عند الحوض ري أنت هاد وصفي.
Welcome back to Know Your Charity. I'm in conversation with Shanaz Parak and Nazir Jamal from Penny Appeal, South Africa. Shanaz, let's talk Gaza. I remember you guys were here in December. You of course had a pledge line, for the people of Gaza, and you mentioned, the packing of the packages, getting that aid in. Talk to us about the progress from middle of December up until now, and, where the Penny Appeal has been able to go ahead and deliver the necessary aid to the residents of Gaza.
Alhamdulillah, again, simply through the grace of the Almighty, we definitely have those 8 trucks. We received notifications with the manifest numbers, indicating that they had passed through, indicating that they were available and distributed. It's one component to be able to send aid through the Rafah border crossing, right, which is from Egypt. The other thing is the receipt on the other hand, the other end. And that involves, working with a myriad of other entities, the likes of UNRWA, the likes of the Palestinian Red Crescent, the likes of our other existing partners that are on the ground, with them being able to actually physically implement and indicate to us that the aid was reaching people. So alhamdulillah, we've been, our social media has been constantly updated, indicating images and videos of people receiving the food packs, people receiving hot meals. Right now in Ramadan, there's iftar meals that were done. There's water tanks that have been delivering. So we're really thankful to, be able to answer the call, even if it's not on the level that we had hoped. Our dua and our prayer is obviously to help each and every one, right? I don't think anybody's Ramadan has been peaceful. We want to be able to help as many as we can, but we make shukr for those that we can reach, and we do the best we can. So aid definitely getting in. It's still a long road to go. There are still thousands and thousands more that need help. But I think our slightly silver lining in this whole thing is there is a little that we can do. And whatever we can do, we will continue to, inshallah.
Nazir, touching on what Shanaz is saying, the appreciation that, the people of Palestine on a whole has been appreciative of South Africa, of course, from the political and law side. We've seen the ICJ case that has been taken, and South Africa's, out and out solidarity. I think I can speak for all 3 of us, the solidarity that everyone feels. And it makes up so many more people within this country. But to see the appreciation when, South African NGOs and Penny Appeal being one of them, helping the people of Palestine, helping the people of Gaza, especially them who are going through the worst famine that has been seen in history?
You know, we've in contact directly with multiple partners consistently on our phones, and when they get the reception and when they charge their phones,
Yes.
and you know, to hear directly, you know, seeing it on a phone and, you know, somebody sending it, but to hear directly someone's record of their issues and what they're going through, it truly shows the magnanimity of it. So we know that it's important for us as a Muslim ummah, firstly, you know, humans obviously as well, that we are able to ensure that we're doing something. You know, we all feel hopeless. We feel like, what am I going to do? What is this 10 rand, 100 rand going to do? But we know that 100 rand, 10 rand is going to buy us that flour, that, you know, rice that can get through, and then ensure that hot meal is served in those communities. We're seeing lines of children. One of the videos that we received right now, lines of children just standing outside with an empty pot and waiting. Hopefully, they'll give me the chance to be receiving that aid, that food. So, you know, when we see that we can make a difference, that you and I are not just helpless. We should never feel hopeless. In the mercy of Allah, never. And so knowing that your donation that you're giving, whatever amount it is, has that ability to impact someone's life directly. You know, imagine it's as if that child is in front of you and you're feeding them.
Yeah.
Feel it that way, because that's what you are doing. Alhamdulillah. And so when we're deciding on how much is going in, where is it going in, what time, which organization we're using, how it's going to reach that person, we try to make sure that it's really impacting those communities.
Alhamdulillah. Shanaz, you know, moving from Palestine, Syria, of course, as a next door neighbor, talk to us about what Penny Appeal has been doing there, because this is a civil war that has been raging now for 13 plus years.
Historically, we've been blessed to, you know, visit Syrian refugee camps, I think twice now, and inshallah there'll be a repeat visit that happens. And a lot of the interventions focus primarily around, again, access to food and nutrition, access to winter items, because we know very well in that entire region, the winters are quite severe, very harsh. So access to winter items. And then we also did something in terms of housing, and this was handing over containerized units to Syrian refugees who reside in tents. When we visited, you know, we've been to a lot of areas, especially here in South Africa, Southern Africa, right? Malawi, Zimbabwe, you see things.
Yes, sure.
But I don't think anything prepared us for, you know, witnessing a family living simply in a tent. You know, nothing fancy about it, just, you know, patched together whatever they may have taken with them when they fled. Nothing really prepared us for that, or for seeing children without any shoes on their feet in that cold weather. Nothing around them for miles and miles, because remember, they're now displaced individuals, right? So displaced families residing in tents. I think the need is quite dire still. You know, wherever we look at certain areas in the world, if we start talking about, example, Somalia, if we talk about Gaza, if we're talking about Syria, Sudan, there are challenges being faced by Ummah, and I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that one supersedes the other. It just means that each has their own challenges and requires that attention. So coming back to Syrian refugees, still very close to our hearts to be able to still continue to provide housing where required, as well as access to food, nutrition. We have a very soft spot for children. And the visits to Syria actually is what inspired us to create a project called Children of the World. And this primarily focused on children from war-torn countries, countries of conflict, countries where there's even man-made disaster, and you have displacement, to prioritize their needs. Because children in emergency and disaster situations tend to be impacted the hardest. You know, we expect there to be longevity in their lives, and without their needs being met in terms of nutrition, in terms of safety, because it doesn't mean because there's a disaster or conflict that those child protection issues go away. So protection of children, being able to ensure that they're fed, so access to nutrition, like I mentioned, security, clothing, winter items, and obviously shelter. Those are the main needs that anybody needs to survive. So that's what Children of the World focuses on. So we're really excited to be able to continue with it, inshallah, continue our support, and see how we can best expand. And who knows? I mean, our dream was to be able to put up a playground in one of these refugee camps for children. So who knows? Inshallah.
I mean, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant
Ameen.
the ability for that to happen. Nazir, Africa as a continent, I know Penny Appeal is also, you know, quite active on the African continent. It's a continent that is still reeling from years of colonialism. And Shanaz mentioned, you know, many man-made disasters Africa, many countries in Africa have gone through many civil wars also. Talk to us about how Penny Appeal is helping countries in Africa to try and at least assist them in having the basic human needs.
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, Malawi, we've got an office there that's set up, and so that's one of the most difficult situations there is water and access to water. You know, I've recently put two in my name for my late father.
Yes.
And I, go to these communities and you see, they walk through with them and they show you where they were actually accessing water from. This was a hole in the ground. Animals' feces were falling inside. Anything, agricultural fertilizer would also go in, and then they consume it in the water. And you see the skin diseases in the children from this. And so having clean water for them is a great need. And so alhamdulillah, we're choosing different communities, Muslim communities, non-Muslim communities as well, so that inshallah we provide it as a humanitarian provision to those communities. And then it's about building masjids in Malawi. Alhamdulillah, we've now established a few there. And then seeing various other projects in feeding and clinics and so on like that. But then moving on to Somalia, which we recently now provided food packs in. Alhamdulillah, that was, as we know, with Somalia, it's a very difficult situation as well. And now leading to Sudan, inshallah. So that will be our next project that we'll be providing in Africa. So we're trying to find different communities and see where the need is greatest, and inshallah provide those funds to those areas.
Inshallah. I mean, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you for Jannatul Firdaus, inshallah. Ameen. Shanaz, I got one final question for both of you. Shanaz, future of Penny Appeal, what other projects is Penny Appeal looking to get involved in, both globally and here domestically?
Ideally, I think first and foremost, we'd want to be able to address local needs, Southern Africa. Again, so the likes of Malawi focusing a lot more around community development. What does education for women and children look like around issues relating to water, hygiene, sanitation? So inshallah, many more water wells, many more community centers, many more masjids. For South Africa, I think we have our work cut out for us. We all understand the challenges we face, and so being able to serve our communities the best we can with what we have, focusing a lot around our core projects, being food and nutrition, water sanitation, hygiene, education, as well as a few others. So I think those are imperative. And then globally, I don't think we'll ever let go of the projects that we have in primarily Palestine, but now more Gaza, within Syrian refugee camps, being able to expand into the likes of Sudan, being able to expand into countries like Yemen, where again, we also have a footprint in Yemen, addressing primarily health issues, access to nutrition. So I think our main vision is to do whatever we can to ensure we have the resources to respond to these projects, to ensure that we have the right type of input, the right type of projects to be able to work within these projects, work within these countries. And ideally, I think, transformation is not easy. It's not overnight. It requires commitment. It requires dedication. So I think it's something we definitely want to prioritize on a long-term basis and do the best we can, inshallah, for the pleasure of our Almighty, and to reach communities and reach those that really need us.
Ameen. We've got less than a minute, Nazir. Obviously, government can't do it on their own. The role of NGOs in South Africa, especially Muslim NGOs, how much of an impact has it made?
It's tremendous. I've been in the industry now for many years. Shanaz's been over like 25 years, alhamdulillah. And, focusing and seeing how Muslims have truly stood up in our country. I think we don't have a larger voice to show that. We should be definitely much more involved in politics and showing the rest of the community that this is our spirit, this is who we are as Muslims. Despite your religion and your views, we will help you when you're in need. Come to us. And we've done that. We've proven ourselves multiple times over. So I mean, really, to our Muslim community who are really sincere people, who are saying, when we do a call for help, constantly my phone will be on, just we're sorting it out. We'll come here, Shaheen will get it, Shanaz will get a message. Alhamdulillah. So thank you to those donors. Thank you to the sincerity. Allah accept everything that you've done and accept all your du'as. That's most important,
inshallah. I mean, Shanaz, Nazir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to help you grow Penny Appeal from strength to strength and grant you strength and barakah in the fantastic work that you are doing, inshallah. I mean, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
That's Nazir Jamal and Shanaz Parak from Penny Appeal, South Africa, because discussing the work that they are doing both here domestically and globally. From myself, Ras Patel, and the rest of the team here in Johannesburg, this is a broadcast of Know Your Charity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أنت بعد العسر يسرا ربنا أعلاك قدرا يا إمام الأنبياء أنت في الوجدان حي أنت للعينين ضي أنت عند الحوض ري أنت